has been such a treat for fans, and Hikaru's like, let's go. And we've got a kickoff. Yes, E4.
Let's go, says Hikaru. 1, E2, E4. Best by test, said Bobby Fischer. And was he right, Peter?
Well, I mean, we see E5, knight F3. I cannot believe Magnus hesitating here. Is that right? In an Armageddon game, you are not supposed to be thinking in move 2. That must have been some technical issue. Ooh, this cost Magnus 15 seconds.
And they're repeating. Well,
no, they are not entirely repeating because Magnus switched to bishop e6 setup. But right. Yeah, it was the same line. This is a much more solid way of playing and much more Magnus style.
I was about to say, no kidding, Peter. You look at the black king and you say, man, that king is in great safety with the pawn shield of 4 pawns in front of the king, the knight nearby. So no issues about the safe king. We won't drill too deeply into any variations. Just, Peter, I wanted to ask you, where is White's king going? Asked and answered, Peter.
Yeah, White had to go for long castles. The question is, Magnus went for knight g6 and Hikaru played knight h5. Wow, very interesting. I mean, you don't really see these moves often, but this exchange on e3 playing c5 is typical, stopping White from going d3, d4. White has to go for f2, f4 in some moment.
Now after the move b7, b6, I'm expecting that Black will bring his bishop from e6, where it did a good job a moment ago, over to, say, the c6 or b7 square, just a little bit closer to the king. Magnus taking his time still, Peter. Again, we are in Armageddon. Where have you been? If you're joining us late, this has been an absolutely epic match between two of the greatest rapid chess players maybe the world has ever seen. Knight h4, Peter.
Yeah, knight h4. This is an indication maybe that Magnus wants to shut things down with g5. And if that's the case, then the big question after, can White play f4? f4 can be answered by g6, and then a knight jump on g2, winning the pawn on f4. Yeah, incredible discovery by Magnus, because if he stops any kind of f4s, then White will have very little breaks available, and Magnus still has 2 minutes 51 on the clock. It's too much time. It's not so easy to play against this clock situation.
And of course, in the Armageddon, Black has draw odds. All he needs is a draw, and he wins the match. But White has the extra minute, and that's why you have to keep a very, very careful eye on the clocks. And I've got to tell you, Peter, looking at this game, and Magnus has played a perfect, and I mean an absolutely perfect.
Wow, and look at c4, also very interesting.
Armageddon, because again, you know, he controls White's play, and Hikaru, desperate now.
Yeah, and this c5, c4 was very important, because if White would have gotten the chance of playing king b2, then simply there was also the chance of simply playing for the clock situation, that you covered everything and you can just play on but forever. Now the position has these dynamics with queen c5 hitting the rook on g1, trying to force these exchanges. On the other hand, Hikaru played his g5 move, trying to get access to Black's only weakness on the e5 pawn.
Wow, I love this move, a7, a5. You mentioned queen c5. I also like rook on 8 to h2. That's a move that White has to keep in mind, and that's probably why we saw the move queen d3. But this move a5 basically says to the knight on c3, don't even hint at moving away, as a5, a4 will unlock the gates to your king. And we've seen rook h7. We've traded rooks quickly. Peter, your take on the current situation?
Well, Black has to play rook h7, exactly. I mean, cover the 7th rank, because the c7 pawn is a weakness. And the big question is what White can do here. What Hikaru is supposed to be doing. And look at the clock situation. It's only 29 seconds advantage for Hikaru. Knight a4, it's a nice move. It's something that forces black to think.
Why? Bishop d7, get rid of that knight.
Okay, but the bishop on e6 is so nice, you don't want to move it. And Magnus, after spending 15 seconds, goes back to d6. Then one feels that knight a4 was really worth it. Maybe knight b2, trying to get the knight to d3.
Okay, I wanted to follow up with a4. Magnus offered the trade of queens, a trade that was declined with queen c3, Peter. And there are issues maybe with the f3 pawn?
Well, but also with the e5 pawn, and this queen on c3 is very, very nice. Yeah, knight b2 played. White wants to go knight d3, and if he gets knight d3, and he will get an advantage. So Magnus has to go after the f3 pawn. Rook h3 played.
And
but now the clock situation is very important. I mean, Magnus is down to 1 minute 26 seconds. If something goes wrong with the clock, I mean the position, he has to spend more time. Rook d5, can it be played? No, knight d3 played.
Ooh, knight f5. There was knight c5 check, and queen takes f3. Oh, what is going on? Oh, this is going to be a fortress. A rook and bishop versus a queen, and that should be a very easy draw for the rook and bishop. Rook e1 is no problem at all now. It's about the clock, Peter.
Yeah, it's all about the clock. Okay, both players are phenomenally fast with the clock. So, I mean, it will be dramatic to witness who will flag whom if we get that far.
Right, and there we have it. It's just a rook and bishop and 3 pawns, and this is just ideal thanks to the pawn on a5, Peter.
Yeah, it's ideal, but still, maybe. Okay, I even don't know for whom it's easier to play faster.
I believe I actually won in Dubai in the Olympiad against your countryman, Lajos Portis, rook and bishop versus rook. Where
wow, sorry, this b5, very important. Yeah, go on, Yasser.
Yeah, just I actually had an extra pawn. So I had a rook and bishop and an extra pawn, and I was able to win. And by the way, this is bishop takes b5 is an easy draw, with the rook going back and forth between d6 and b6. And I also think that's true with the pawn on b7. So now I just don't see any hopes at all. This is very easy, just rook back and forth.
Yeah, and look at Hikaru's face. Yeah, he knows it, that's it. And Magnus has 55 seconds. Time is not an issue. Yeah, this is going to be a draw.
Magnus Carlsen choosing the black pieces, and that was the difference. And Hikaru laughing, he knows he played a great match, and he knows his opponent played just a little bit better. Wow.